Gwinnett Medical Center is now entering Peachtree Corners. Conveniently located in the heart of this thriving community, our new center offers first-rate primary care and specialty services, including cardiology, gastroenterology, neurology, OBGYN, orthopedics, 3D mammography, and X-ray. Learn more about how GMC is making industry-leading healthcare more convenient than ever at gwinnettmedicalcenter.org/PTC.
Behind speakers, the keynote speakers, and when Sprint's, the president of Sprint Business spoke, and he was speaking about different things. There in the background on one of the pictures was Curiosity Lab, and it had the Ollie shuttle, and it had a couple other photos of our grand opening, and then it has the city's logo right there, City Peachtree Corners, Georgia. So we're being talked about in the same breath as some really big cities out there, so it's pretty exciting.
Hi, this is Rico Figliolini. I'm with Peachtree Corners Life. I'm doing this Prime Lunchtime with Brian Johnson, the city manager. A little different than we normally do. You might see us in a podcast room, either at Prototype Prime or lately at Atlanta Tech Park. But today, Brian's on the West Coast. And look, technology, Wi-Fi, I mean, this makes sense because where he's at in LA is that he had a speaking engagement there that he was invited to do at the Mobile World Congress. And it's it's mobile technology. We're talking about 5G, Wi-Fi. So he's out on the West Coast. We're doing this video chat. So bear with us with technology and all that. But it's going to be cool because Brian's going to be able to walk us through maybe part of that World Congress to see what's there. So I'm going to bring Brian in. And there he is. Cool. So Brian, this is great that you're on the West Coast and we finally got the tech to work here, a little bit sound and all that. So tell us what you're doing out there. How'd you end up on the West Coast?
So the city was asked to participate out here in a couple of capacities. One, the International Trade Organization for Wireless Telecommunication Companies, CTIA, asked me a while back to be a part of a smart city task force, and they're meeting out here. So that's one of the reasons. And then two, they asked me to speak on about Curiosity Lab and about cities using, in this case, 5G and our partnership with Sprint as a way to enhance economic development within a city. And then, of course, the third reason is you'll see here in a little bit, our partners with Sprint have a very prominent, place in a conference like this. This is, mobile technology, wireless telecommunications, and Sprint, along with the other big players in this space, the Verizons and AT&Ts and the U.S. and even the Vodafones and Orange, communication, from Europe and other places. They've all got big presence here, and Sprint wanted the city here to help them talk about Curiosity Lab. And you'll see we have some prominent, places in the Sprint marketing effort out here, if you will. So out here, what you have is you've got all these companies that are kind of showing off what they do. They're meeting with companies and they're trying to get, business to business, arrangements done. And of course, part of that is for Sprint to potentially use Curiosity Lab as a location for them to bring partners in, which ultimately their hope is to get more business. So I've been helping them and meeting with companies that are interested in maybe coming to Curiosity Lab and using it for a little bit or using it for longer than a little bit. And using maybe 5G technology or, whatever. And so our interest here is aligned. And so, I can show you how this thing works, but it's a pretty cool, it's a pretty cool thing that here Peachtree Corners, is out here being invited to be part of something that's, really way bigger than any one city. And this is how the world communicates in a wireless way.
It's funny. And you're on the West Coast and, a lot of people here in Peachtree Corners. You even met a few people out there that are from Peachtree Corners at the show.
So, it's a small world sometimes. So I've met two people out here that I'm just out Often one of them was, in one of the hallways, and the other one was on the, convention center floor. And I hear my name, and I turn, and I look, and there's a Peachtree Corners resident. And one of them, Mike Suzo, who lives off of West Jones Bridge, he actually is a coach of a baseball team at Pickneyville Park, in the same league my son is. And so we've run into each other, coached against each other for a number of years, and I didn't know what he did, and he works for a chip manufacturer that has a big presence out here. And so Peachtree Corners is represented out here even more than we realize with people who are employed by companies that are in the space.
Wow, amazing. Now, you're going to give us an opportunity at some point where you're going to walk through a little bit of the World Congress, and I think you're going to end up at or start at or get to the Sprint Pavilion or exhibit spot, where the city has sort of a presence at that booth as well?
Yeah, so when you go into the main entrance of the exhibition hall, and so this is, of course, where everybody's got their big booths and their big, areas where they're showing off their stuff.
Right.
And so this is, all the wow stuff, and it's what you oftentimes see at these kind of things. Now, that's really just the front of house stuff. The real work gets done in rooms that are set up elsewhere in the convention center, in which these companies have dedicated space that they could bring potential clients and partner to quiet space, which then they can get down to business. But the exhibition hall, the main entrance, the very first booth you walk into is the Sprint one.
Okay.
It's a big one. You'll see in a second. And then they've got, the way they decided to do it this year is they're doing a virtual reality. So you're going to see this really big, it's almost like a couple of massive conference tables put together. And it's really a white top with some outlines of buildings and space on it, but that's it. It's just white. And what they're doing is you put on virtual reality goggles, and it builds the virtual, map of what they're trying to show off. And they're showing off locations where Sprint has deployed 5G, and they want partners. And the very first one on this table, which is the very first booth coming in here, is Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners. And I'll show you how it works. So, our partnership sometimes pays dividends when we get space. We got mentioned on a big, on a massive screen. This screen was had to have been about 100 feet corner to corner behind speakers, the keynote speakers. And Sprint's, the president of Sprint Business spoke, and he was speaking about different things. There in the background on one of the pictures was Curiosity Lab, and it had the Ollie shuttle, and it had a couple other photos of our grand opening, and then it has the city's logo right there, City Peachtree Corners, Georgia. So we're being talked about in the same breath as some really big cities out there, so it's pretty exciting.
That is cool to be able to have Sprint, a mega company, be able to push this little city across the country. Yeah.
Right. So, it's pretty cool. But anyway, so, if you want, we can take a little walk. You can kind of see what this is. So I'm going to turn this around here in a second and let everybody see how these things work. And we'll walk into the main thing. There may be a period of time where, real quick, that I've got to have somebody scan my badge, but we'll turn this around. Right. So I'm coming in the main entrance here. And you will see right here at the beginning is right in the main one is the Sprint booth. So you'll see how they've got this set up. Right. What they're doing here is that's a virtual reality table right here. So right in the middle of it, you'll see people wearing goggles, and you'll see how they're wearing goggles, and this table behind is representing the places that Sprint has deployed 5G.
Oh, okay.
So if you walk a little bit closer, you will see on the very first.
Cool. Curiosity Lab. Nice.
So, and you'll see that building right there is a rendering of Prototype Prime.
Wow, excellent. And the road in front of it is the road that it's traveling on.
That's correct. So that's a version of it. So what they've done is, when you put the virtual reality goggles on, it takes and it
Wow.
it takes and it builds a three-dimensional rendering of all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can see, so that's how Sprint decided to deploy things here.
Right.
Now, you'll see another aspect that we've got here is their Cloud Mines robot right here.
Yeah, see that? Cool.
So a rendering of that or a version of that was at our grand opening. It was called Cloudy.
So what he's doing out on the West Coast is that he had a speaking conference, and he was speaking there because he was invited by Sprint to be able to do this. And it's a great opportunity for the city to be able to be out there and to be able to share through a company like Sprint because we're leveraging that partnership to be able to bring other companies here that want to use 5G network, that want to be part of this Curiosity Lab and the road that's on there. But we're going to be talking to him a bit more about what it means to be able to market out there, what he's seen and what's coming up in the next few months with Curiosity Lab as well, because, life does go on and there's a staff of people that, there you are, Brian.
Back. All right.
You're cool.
So, all right. So, again, this is just the decisions that companies make. Here's a big one from Ericsson. Ericsson's showing off the antennas. Those are 5G and 4G LTE antennas that they make.
Okay.
They sell to companies like Sprint. The 5G antennas that we actually have in Curiosity Lab are made by Ericsson. But, it's interesting because, out here you could turn around and guess who else makes them?
Samsung. Right.
And you can see on the back wall there, those are massive MIMO antennas for 5G also. So these companies, and they make some for Sprint. Sprint doesn't buy them all from exclusive, neither does AT&T, neither does Verizon. So you've got all these companies that are, trying to show off their stuff. You can go over here. Here's another one that maybe people might know, NVIDIA. If you're into gaming, you'll know NVIDIA. They make really the first ones to make video cards for computers that allow you to play these games at a high level that, we oftentimes see in gaming. And so they're now in different space, including they may end up considering doing some stuff at Curiosity Lab, because right over here, you will see something you would have never thought a video chip manufacturer would be involved in. And this is what I'm learning every day is there's an autonomous package delivery vehicle.
Really? Everyone's getting into mobility.
Here's NVIDIA. Yes. It's through a company called Postmates. And you can see how, it's a little, it's an autonomous delivery robot. And you'll see through the video that they've got them deploying here in the greater LA area, and they're doing some of their delivery. And, they're looking to do something. So those are just some of the, unique things. You're like, what? How would they get into that? And what would they do things? The last thing would be
LinkedIn here.
Right.
Here, our network operations center has the need to have video feed, and so look at all of those live cameras with vehicle recognition all on one screen. That takes a massive video card to be able to do that, and so lots of partnership opportunities. So
cool. So they're not just in my gaming video machine.
No, not anymore. So let me go find a place to sit down real quick, and then we can talk a little bit about what's going on.
Now, this is mainly open to the trade, sort of. It's not. You don't see the general public coming in, or do they open it for the general public too?
You can. These kind of things are things that if you wanted to, and you wanted to pay, you could show up, but it's not cheap. I mean, and, if I hadn't been invited, we wouldn't necessarily be, a part of this. So,
Sure.
Anyway, I'm almost at the area I can sit down. So this is the back of the one of the halls. I mean, there's a number of different ones that are out here that you can end up go into. There's another space here that has startups only, and the startups are, ones that are involved in, certain unique aspects. Let me turn this around.
You're fine. And just to let people know, I mean, it's 9 o'clock or 9:20 in your time, so the floor just opened.
That's
because I'm looking at it. It's sparse right now. But trade shows are funny that way. There's the peak and cycles. I've been to enough building trade shows to know that there's peaks and cycles of these things.
Right. So, that's just a snippet. I mean, we could go around all day long, talking about certain things, but that's kind of why I'm out there or out here, and,
right.
Peachtree Corners being represented pretty well. So,
well, and I'm sure the city appreciates you being out there, because it does. I mean, you are like the salesperson, really, for getting companies here. I mean, besides Curiosity Lab, I mean, you're the one that's been going out and doing the heavy lifting too. And of course, I think we froze up again. He's going to have to find a safe space to be in. Moving around you'll end up in dead spaces. So he's probably finding a place that's safe that he can that the signal's good on, and he'll be back at some point. But as I mentioned, we're going to be discussing the Pedestrian Bridge, which started several weeks ago with the work, and also the 55 and older development that's being done at that we know on the old Five-Serve property, because they've just sold that property, and now there's a partnership, and they're going to begin breaking ground early 2020. The first probably, I don't know if it's the first quarter, but they're certainly beginning to work on it. So there's a new company that's got involved. If you go to livingintpeachtreecorners.com, you'll see the article on that. We're going to have a little bit more information on it as things move along. We're going to be seeing if we can get them up and talking to us about it. But let me find the name of the company that bought it, that bought that 55 and older development, really, that everyone's been talking about. It's called the Providence Group of Georgia. They're a Swanee-based builder, and the idea is actually to begin to sell the first homes in the fourth quarter of 2020. So that's what's happening. So they came in, they were sold the property, but the partnership actually entails a joint venture with the Providence Group. And so the subsidiary of it is called Green Brick Partners, Inc., and then also East Jones Bridge Road. Those are the guys that originally purchased the land to develop, that sold it, and now are going to co-develop it. So that's what's happening there. Certainly it's going to take time. It's a 30-acre piece of property that abuts the Chattahoochee River. So it's happening. So a lot of people have asked that development, everyone's been talking about it. It's taken time because once it was rezoned, it takes time at that point then to find finance and development partners. And that's what's happening now. So they did sell it. It's going to happen. It is for those that are not familiar, this project on East Jones Bridge Road, the old Five-Serve property, does abut the Chattahoochee River. Parts of it abuts the Simpson Elementary School property, I believe, because it comes around. It is going to be an age-restricted for 55 and older development that's going to be assisted living and memory care components. At least that's the way it was zoned, and that's the way it should be. But from what I understand, the memory care portion could be 2 or 3 years into the development phase before that it comes in. Obviously, the environment of the economy and all that can work towards adjusting a few things, I guess. But the idea is it is age restricted. That's the way it was rezoned. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that. And as far as the pedestrian bridge, again, if you go to livinginpeachtreecorners.com, it did add a picture, a new rendering, or it's not a new rendering, but recent, so we could talk about that. Brian.
So can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Was that a Sprint commercial, or was that Verizon?
No, I mean, wow. So, here's an interesting phenomenon. So I'm in, the convention space,
right?
And I'm on Wi-Fi for the convention center, but this mobile telecommunications, convention has so many mobile hotspots.
Yes.
That as I walked deeper into, because I was walking to the back of the convention hall to sit down to talk,
right,
it booted me off the overall one because so many companies, every Qualcomm and Ericsson and
right,
Cisco, and they all had their own, and I couldn't get the mobile one, so it booted me off. That's what took me. So I had to walk back out through the main door and come out to so now I'm back to.
And sometimes,
anyway.
I've done it where I've tried to do Wi-Fi live stream at trade shows, and depending where you're walking, you're going to lose it. Walls are going to be problematic too and stuff. So it's fine. So glad to have you on back again.
Thank you.
So anything new that you want to share that's going on with Curiosity Lab at this point? Any new companies?
Well, so, I don't know if you knew this, but, on Tuesday night, city council meeting, which I also attended remotely through video teleconference because I had just gotten out here, council voted to authorize me to execute an MOU for us to have a teleoperated e-scooter deployment within the Technology Park Atlanta area of Peachtree Corners. So we are going to enter into an agreement with essentially two companies. One is going to be an e-scooter provider.
Okay.
And then the second would be the teleoperator of e-scooter, which you will know because it's the Tortoise who showed off their ability to remotely move at their grand opening.
Yep.
So Tortoise is going to be partnering with an e-scooter company that we haven't decided yet because I have some interviews and I want to talk to make sure we get the right company. But at the end of the day, we are going to deploy about 100 scooters within Technology Park Atlanta. That's going to be the first rollout. All of Tech Park Atlanta, the entire 500 acres.
Okay.
Not just the 1.5 mile test track of Curiosity Lab.
Right.
And these e-scooters are going to be, there's going to be a couple of things that make them really unique. The first is they're all teleoperated, meaning if there is not a human on them, Tortoise, through another human at a remote location, can log into the scooter and move it around remotely, reposition it remotely. Not only can they reposition it to, maybe somebody got done with it and left it at a location that was not a great location for them.
Right.
They want to move it, but also you'll be able to call for a scooter like you would Uber or Lyft.
So as long as
you get on an app and say, I want a scooter because I want to go to lunch, and it'll drive the e-scooter to your location so you can get on it and take it to where you're going.
Now, can they take? So if I want to go to lunch on, I don't know, Wendy's or some restaurant, can I go outside of Technology Park?
So the second component to that is in phase one. It's kind of call it a probationary period. We are limiting it to Tech Park Atlanta. Now, that's on both sides of 141. Oftentimes people think Tech Park Atlanta is only on the side where City Hall is. That's kind of the original side. But it is also on the west side of 141. Mm-hmm. It includes, offices back there, like, where the Peachtree Corners Festival has been for years back there. That's Tech Park Atlanta.
Right.
It goes way back in there, but anyway.
That's where Marriott Queen is for the church.
Right,
and
correct.
Chick-fil-A is like out the other way.
That's correct. And it goes up into, borders Spalding, to the north, even on the west side of 141. But anyway, we're limiting it to that area.
Okay.
And if you leave that area, these e-scooters are geofenced. And what that means is when it goes outside of that predefined area, it will slow the e-scooter's ability to move down to, I want to say it was 2 miles an hour. So if anybody has ever been on a golf cart that has geofencing, there are some golf courses that do this. And the golf cart, when they have GPS, they know where the golf cart is. And if it is a day in which, say, the fairway's too wet and they say cart path only, if you leave that cart path, the golf cart will shut down or it'll go to a ridiculous slow speed until you turn it and head back there. And that's what's going to happen with the scooter, to where they don't want to shut it down completely, because if you do, you could have somebody in a position like, the middle of the road, crossing over.
Yeah, you don't want that happening.
You don't want it to stop, but it slows it way down so that it makes it to where it's not even really it's not even really an advantage to use the thing anymore, because it goes so slow you could walk faster than it. So they're going to geofence it to discourage people from leaving the defined area. So between geofencing to keep it in the defined area, and then the ability to reposition this stuff through teleoperation, we think are going to address the two concerns that you actually have in e-scooters, including the deployment in Atlanta. Not all of them, but one of them was e-scooters were, at all sorts of places that are not, and people, becomes a problem there. And then the other one is you want to define where they can operate and don't have them, leave that area. And this is going to do the same thing. So these two companies are partnering. They're using Curiosity Lab as a kind of a epicenter, but we are expanding it to all of Tech Park, and they're going to use this as an opportunity to deploy and show the world that yes, these things can be deployed in a safe manner. And so again, Curiosity Lab is showing it's serving its role in helping evolve technology to a point where one day it might be to where the e-scooters are a great micro-mobility solution, because you can limit where they go and you can move them around when people, drop them wherever they're at. So we're excited about serving that, that role, but it's going to be a probationary period. We will see how it's rolled out, and we'll go from there. But we will have micro-mobility people to do it in Peachtree Corners here in the next, say, 90 days.
So phase one then, for practical purposes, if I want to go eat somewhere, though, you're saying it's not stuck, but it's geofenced within the park. And the only place really within that park is what, Andabee's Brewery, I think, in the hotel.
Yeah, so you could probably, so what you're going to see, if you work in Tech Park, you're going to probably end up, and this is what we're going to hammer out. We're going to see if we can't come up with maybe a centralized parking location. But where you're at is you're probably looking at taking an e-scooter down either south into, the Dick's Sporting Goods Target, area down there where you've got, Chick-fil-A and, those restaurants, Corner Bakery, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you wouldn't be able to get it all the way in there, but we're going to try to see if we can come up with a centralized area where you can just leave it, and then just you've only got a couple, you got 100 feet or 200 feet final steps to get to that restaurant.
Gotcha.
Or to the north, you end up getting into where, you got the Goodwill Shopping Center where you got some of those fast food restaurants and and everything. Those are going to be the two. Now, I will tell you that Mayor and Council were very clear that if this thing ends up working out well and it's not creating problems, they would really like the phase two to be done very soon, if everything works out, to be able to include the town center and the forum as part of this.
Okay.
So that is going to be the goal, is for us to have the town center and forum all the way down to the 1,000 hotel rooms that we've got, at the Hilton and, Marriott and the other few that are down there, so that at the end of the day, you may have two things. Again, now this is a test. This is not driven by rider demand. So for people out there who are like, well, there's not a need, we're not saying that there's, throngs of people who are trying to use e-scooters to get from point A to point B. We're saying that maybe we can serve
the same way that Ollie really. I mean, we want to use. The city would like to see it used. The idea is to be able to use it, but that it's a transportation thing, not.
That's great. That's exactly right, Rico. I mean, Ollie was not driven by ridership demand. It is being tested, but it is being enhanced and tested by that company just as much as it's being used as a shuttle. And so, we are looking on November 1 to have the hours of operation on Ollie changed to where they serve like a lunchtime, time frame. So like 11 to 2, and then they come off and they go back and they go from say 5 to 9.
Okay.
And so that way you can get up to Anderby Brewing and back to the hotels, and it doesn't stop so early. And so again, this other micro mobility, service that we're going to have is not driven by demand. It's driven by testing and evolving technology. But as Peachtree Corners residents, or those who work in the city or whatever, it's something that can be used, and we might be able to get it to where you can jump on this thing and get up to the town center and eat lunch all the way up there. Now you really do have a lunch crowd that can go to a lot of different restaurants that we want to. Maybe those 1,000 hotel rooms and those business travelers won't need to get into a car, like Uber, and get on 141 and clog it up for those of us who do need to use it. Maybe it's doing its small, step in getting some cars off of 141, as part of this test. So it's pretty cool.
Right. And I mean, eventually we're talking about Ollie even becoming transportation outside that. I mean, or something similar. That's the idea. Anyway.
And, and let's just remember one other thing, and that is, Curiosity Lab in itself is really only been hatched less than 2 years ago, and we've only had our first strategic partner less than a year. It was last January, this last January 2019, that we announced our partnership with Sprint.
Right.
And so Curiosity Lab is kind of a startup in its own right.
Yeah.
So we're learning things, including like the track. There have been some concerns about how it feels tight and this and that and the other, and we're removing some of the flexible bollards, about every other one, because functionally they weren't needed, even though on paper, we're like, all right, every 20 feet, that's pretty good, but then when you get out there and you're going on it, you don't need it that much. And so we're making little tweaks to improve it that are field decisions, just because we're a startup. The Curiosity Lab is a startup itself, and it's learning, because there's no other living lab like it in the world for us to emulate. So we're kind of having to figure this out as we go too.
Yeah, I'm sure. And people, especially the companies and the employees on that road, are getting used to it. Trucks that have to drive on there for delivery are getting used to it. So yeah, no, I get it. I mean, at the beginning, it's always that the lanes look smaller when they're really not. It's just a visual thing, but it's cool that you're addressing those demands.
Yeah, I mean, we're not above, saying, hey, on paper it looked good, but then functionally it's not serving quite the same thing that we wanted it to, so we're going to tweak it. So we're learning, but, again, when you go from 15-foot travel lanes and a 15-foot turn lane that almost nobody used, you could fly, and people did fly through that section. And then all of a sudden to go from that to 10.5-foot lanes is a big jump. So, but when you slow it down to, I notice that when I get to 35 or below, now all of a sudden it doesn't feel so, like, whoa, you just got to slow things down. We're going to do our part to make it a little bit easier. So again, we're learning all the time. So, just be patient with us.
Right. All right. Cool. So, Anything more you want to share from out there with regard to mobility and all this?
No, I mean, again, the big thing is, we've got companies that I've been talking to that are definitely going to be doing some things in Curiosity Lab or because of Curiosity Lab, meaning these are companies that would normally not be staying in our hotels or eating in our restaurants, but they will be, even if it's for a temporary period of time, and they will be because of Curiosity Lab and the city's, economic development oriented stuff. So it's still serving the original purpose it has, which is activity. And all the activity we can get to help the restaurants, retail, hotels in the city are things that we can do to make sure that, Peachtree Corners remains a great place to live, work, and play.
Yeah, cool. So like you've said before, and I'll quote you, life doesn't stop. You have people working, obviously, here that are doing things. And one of the things, obviously, was something that I posted on our website about the Pedestrian Bridge, that construction has started already. Do you want to share some stuff with that?
Sure. So, of course, a long, sordid story to get to this point, which you, of course, have lived even longer than me as far as, when this first was socialized.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, we took what we feel strongly is a need out there, and that need is both to link up one half of our downtown, which we consider the Forum to be, to the other half of our downtown, which is, the new town center, to make it to where both sides, are, complementary of each other. And we wanted to do that and provide that ability in a safe way. So now pedestrians can go and they don't have to do it at grade. It also enhances the north and south traffic flow, because now we will, when the pedestrian bridge is in, we will no longer allow for at grade crossing at that location. So there won't be the ability to hit. There won't even be a pedestrian actuated signal. And as we've talked about before, when pedestrians want to cross and they actuate a signal, right, and you get the green light to walk, it makes traffic stop longer, because the timing of that has to be such that, if Aunt Mabel was out there kind of on her walker, she would still have time to cross, or reasonable amount of time to cross. So it makes traffic sit there waiting longer than it would if pedestrians were not crossing at grade. So this eliminates that. So the light won't stop as often, and when it does, it won't be red on north-south as long. So when you combine those two things, safe crossing, better traffic flow north and south, and linking up to important sales tax generating, activities, and ones that people, ones that make Peachtree Corners unique, the restaurants and the retail and the gathering place, linking those two up. We're excited about this thing being put in. So it is going in. You've, seen it. I understand that, just as I was leaving, the first crane was placed in there, and we're starting to drive pilings. There is not slated, and this has come up, there is not scheduled any lane closures as part of that pedestrian bridge crossing. That's part of the reason why those concrete, the Jersey barriers are up.
Right, sure. Jersey barriers.
To prevent, or provide a safe way for the construction crews to be there and not, but there is not slated to be any lane closures. The only other time that we know we're going to have to close the lanes is going to be sometime in the late winter of next year, January, February or so, in which we're going to drop the span in over top of the lanes.
Okay.
And that'll require a closure of a couple of days, and we'll do it over a weekend. And, of course, the detour will be Peachtree Corner Circle up to Medlock and back, Medlock back to 141.
So you're saying 141 would be totally closed for a couple of days?
Yes, for maybe 48 hours over a weekend. as they lay the span in, and they've got to safely get it attached to each side and make sure it doesn't, we can do it. We've thought about there is a way to do it at night, for, like 6 to 8 hours each night, but then you'd have that thing closed longer than if we just, kind of got it all done at once.
Right.
So I just, people have asked, there's going to be lane closures. No, we do not want any lane closures at all on that. And there shouldn't be, except for that one time, and it would not be during the business week commute.
Okay. There were a couple of other minor questions. That's the bigger question, I guess. But a couple of other minor questions. Someone asked, will there be elevators on both sides?
Yes. So the phase one of it will have stairs and elevators on both sides. It is ADA compliant. They are bigger elevators so that you can put a bike in there. So if you had a bicycle and you wanted to take it across, you'll be able to get it in. It's not going to be a small elevator. Okay. But yes, there will be elevators on both sides.
Lights across the bridge, I'm assuming it's going to be lit?
Yes, there's going to be a lighting component to it, yes.
Okay. So pedestrians can obviously cross at any time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Security cameras at all? Just curious. I know there's been...
Yeah, we'll probably end up putting them on there and then tying them into the same cameras that are on the town center. Town center's under surveillance now, too. Right. All the time. That's a city asset, and we don't want any vandalism. We don't want anybody doing anything that they shouldn't. And so I'm pretty sure I see no reason why I would not put surveillance cameras on there and tied into the same system so that people know that, if nothing else, it's a deterrent. If people know that, it's under surveillance over there, it might deter people from doing something. And God forbid something bad does happen, but at least the police will have the ability to go back and pull the video and maybe, prosecute whoever was involved in the criminal, activity.
And the elevators will be available 24 hours.
Yes. Yeah, so the Pedestrian Bridge will be open 24, 365. There's no hours of operation. You want to cross, you should cross there. In fact, we encourage it because we're going to close the at-grade crossing there at Town Center and Forum Drive.
Town Center and Forum Drive. Okay.
Right. That at-grade. You won't be able to cross at the same level as the cars anymore. You're going to have to go and use the pedestrian bridge. We don't want you to be able to stop traffic for pedestrian crossing down there.
Sure. So that goes away sort of, I guess. But the corners where CVS and QT are, those still will work as far as crossings.
Yeah, so at grade. So if you want to cross between the Forum and the Town Center area, you're going to have 3 locations that you can do it safely. You'll have East Jones Bridge, Medlock Bridge, 41. That'll still be at grade. Okay. Then going halfway up the hill, you'll have the pedestrian bridge, kind of at the crest of the hill. And then going down the other side, you'll have the other one at Peachtree Corners Circle. That will remain there too. And of course, that will serve, the Hotel Indigo and, that area behind, the Chase Bank and Black Walnut and everything. And so those will be the 3 ways that you would cross between, the Forum and the Town Center. Okay.
And since you brought it up, I might as well ask, anything new on the Indigo or the boutique hotel and the apartment?
Yes. So, if you want to call it behind the scenes, that is proceeding forward. There have been submittals done by the developer, and there has been some information requested of the city by the developer as him and his team continue to move forward. These things, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that get done, and then all of a sudden where you would get, the public it seems like goes from 0 to, oh, wow, they're starting. Fiserv is a good example. Big announcement about them starting phase 1. And, people have been asking for a long time, well, when is it going to happen? Or does it look like it's going to happen? Or what, why is it nothing going on? A lot was going on behind the scenes to get ready for the fact that we're now close to there being the turning of dirt and the beginning of, of that project. And of course, only in phase 1, it'll be the first, say, third of the property will be developed. The closest third to East Jones Bridge.
And is that, what type of building will that, because I mean, they released a site map of a sort, rendering. So what type of buildings would be the first phase that's actually going to be built in the front?
First phase are going to be detached, some detached houses, some townhomes, some stacked flats, and some cottages. I guess the detached ones are basically cottages, I think is what they're calling them. But they're detached. They're not. They're standalone structures. So I think those are going to be cottages, and then townhomes, and then stacked flats are what's going in phase one. So it's almost like really another subdivision, so to speak. Right. Nothing high, nothing, multiple stories. I think you're going to have 3 stories is the highest in phase one they're looking to do.
And the stack
remember, we wanted them to go high over the crest of the hill back into the property so that their height doesn't affect anybody.
Right. I mean, when it goes back there, I think the allowance was 6 stories or 7 stories in the back by the riverside.
Right. Correct.
Okay. And the flats, so that people understand, those are rentals?
Some of them there'll be a combination of both.
Okay.
There'll be some for sale, and then there'll be some rentals too.
Okay.
And of course, stacked flats is multiple residential units in one building, but each floor is its own unit. So you don't have stairs within that unit. So like you could live on the ground floor and you have the entire ground floor unit, and then I'm in the second floor, but I'm still a 1-floor unit. I'm just, all of me is, all of my unit is above all of yours.
So are there going to be elevators to reach those floors? Or?
Yes, I believe at a certain point when they get up there, maybe more than 2, they start putting elevators. Because remember, it's an age-restricted community, so they're definitely going to be which is where stacked flats come in, is as people get older, they don't want to have stairs in their house. They want to have 1 floor and no stairs. And so that would be where you get into where, I may be on the 3rd floor, but once I get into my unit, I don't have to go upstairs anymore.
It's like a ranch.
Yes.
Ranch building, just stacked up.
That's exactly right. So, Yep.
So that's going to be starting, and I understand by the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter of next year, they're going to be starting to sell units. Yep. All right. So they're going to break ground probably in the 1st quarter, I would think, or they're going to pre-sell probably by the end of the year.
Yeah, they're going to start pre-selling here shortly. In fact, they're talking about doing scheduling within the next 30 days, or maybe even a little bit sooner, an actual groundbreaking with mayor and council, because, they're going to be live with real stuff, like real agents you can call and reserve units. You can start, whether it's, pre-leasing or sale, you can start getting into which design template you want, and all that kind of stuff if you do it. So, now, of course, they got a lot of work to do before they start going vertical. There's site work. There's enhancing the buffering between the property and some of the neighboring residential units.
Right.
So they've got to do some planting there. And then they've got some demolition. They got a bunch of demolition. They got to rip out a bunch of parking lots to build over top of them. And
no, they're not.
Things too.
And they're not touching the buildings in the back yet, I guess.
That's correct. It would be probably the very first building that they'll end up removing, which is actually the newest one, but it's a 4-story, I believe, Class B office space is what it was. But, that's going to be removed. And then, of course, a lot of the parking lots, because that's what they're building over top of, but they've got to remove the asphalt before they can start putting in foundation. So that's why you're talking about, about a year from now is when they're going to start actually, going vertical, just because it takes that long to.
And we will, the normal passerby down that street, not to take too much more time on that one, won't see anything really. The grass and all that will still be there, that buffer from what I understand looks like.
Yeah, the only way you might be able to see something is the very first unit. If you're coming down East Jones Bridge and you look across the entrance, it's pretty, it's pretty treeless. It's nice grassed area before it kind of turns. You might be able to see the first units.
Okay.
But not much, definitely nothing after that. And maybe not anything at all, but it would just be the very first units you might be able to see, but that's it.
Okay. All right. And then, not to belabor the other part, but the hotel and apartments, they're moving this stuff going on behind the scenes, and I think we lost you again. Okay, there you are. There's stuff going behind the scenes with the Indigo in the apartments, but nothing that you can talk about, Chad, on that.
Yeah, they're not quite at Fiserv's location yet, but they're gathering. I think they're getting ready to start lining up all of the financing, which is what Fiserv's developers did.
So
you can't move forward if you don't have the money to move forward, and that's where Fiserv was doing it. Now that's where I think the Indigo and the apartments are doing it.
Okay, for sure. And so the Indigo is still part of that play, that it's still that franchise?
It is. We have a guaranteed boutique hotel that the city, but it is still the Hotel Indigo chain that is part of the investment portfolio that was created to get people fired up about investing in the property. It was specifically Indigo, and the franchise for an Indigo is still owned or still held by the developer. So, that's still an Indigo.
Okay. And then just to hit a few other quick points, I know we're almost at the hour, and I want to let you go in a little while. But Earth Fair, the old Earth Fair, I understand there may be something new coming at this point. It's getting closer. Anything you can tell us on that?
Yes, there does appear to be some activity by the owner on getting the lease released from Earth Fair so that they can turn around and lease it to somebody else. We do not. So I can say this much. The announcement, not from us, but Lidl has announced.
I saw that. Right.
Yes. So that's not, coming from us. All I can confirm is Lidl has officially announced that they're opening a couple locations in North Metro Atlanta, and one of them is the Earth Fair space. So it's probably fair to say that that's what's going to go in there. And if anybody knows, it's a boutique grocery store. It is a spin-off. It's a competitor of Aldi.
Right.
And in fact, if you actually go way back, there are 3 grocery store chains now that have all splintered off of the very first one that were owned by brothers. Aldi, Lidl, and Trader Joe's are all grocery store chains that have come out of the very first chain, which was Aldi.
Really?
And so they were all owned by the same brothers in Germany.
Wow.
Post World War II, and over time they've split off and created other chains, and so Lidl, Aldi, and Trader Joe's all have the same origin. Interesting.
Low price grocery store.
Or boutique also. It's not just that they kind of serve a unique market. There are some subtle differences between Lidl and Aldi and Trader Joe's. So that's what they've announced. And so I think it's probably fair to say that's what's going in.
Cool. All right. I'm sure I can answer you tons of more questions, but you have a show to be at. So I appreciate the willingness to be with me for an hour on this and walking through some of the expo.
No, Rico. Again, I say this a lot. I say it to you directly, but are the listeners now or later on the social media platforms you post, especially the stakeholders in the city, are lucky to have your podcast and what you do to make sure that they have a resource to learn what's going on in the community. So from the city's perspective, I appreciate really this as an opportunity to talk about what's going on and potentially preemptively answer questions that people might have. But if nothing else, those who are interested in their community, this is a great resource for them to understand what's going on. So I appreciate, again, you doing what you do to make, those of us who live, work, and play in Peachtree Corners a little bit more educated about things and than we would be if you weren't doing it.
Yeah, thank you. It's always fun doing this, to learn more and to get into this stuff. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you being with us. For everyone else, thank you for joining us. And there's another podcast later today that I'll be doing for Peachtree Corners Live, so check back on our Facebook page. Thank you, Brian.
All right, Rico, take care.
You too. Enjoy the show.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being with me. That was Brian Johnson. This was Prime Lunchtime with the city manager. Thanks again, and you all have a great day. Enjoy.